Okay, so just before we go into this, I think it would be quite useful to do a little sit rep on Red Bull and where they find themselves right now. Because after the team's overall performance, which I think was confirmed in Austria, I think there are some signs that things are not all that well back at the Castle of Caffeine. So the most upfront and obvious indication has got to be the driver lineup, and in that we have a Max Verstappen and a Sergio Perez. Experienced known quantities by this stage, but still neither of them seem to be their usual selves. In the case of Max, especially from what we saw in Hungary, he seems to have a much shorter fuse than usual, especially if the car or race isn't going according to plan. Or, just being blunt, is he annoyed that he actually has to put a shift in and grind because he doesn't have that 20-second lead in front anymore? Has he become lethargic? Has he become too used to perfection? But from his perspective, if you're being served 5-star meals for 3 years and then have a microwave curry put in front of you, then you'd be pretty annoyed too. Life could be worse because right now he could be in the shoes of Sergio Perez, who appears to be like a candle being burned at both ends. At his core, Perez I think is an acceptable upper midfield driver, but he's showing all the signs of a fatigued driver that has just been pushed and rattled too hard. And that's what is so confusing, because he's not a bad driver. Okay, so he screwed up qualifying in Hungary, but climbing all the way back up to 7th from the back of the grid, that is something that bad drivers simply cannot do. He seems tired, he seems abandoned, he seems like he just needs a new home. Drivers aside for a moment, and then we get to the enormous mud pie of the senior staff. Christian Horner, Helmut Marko and Adrian Newey. As we all know, Adrian Newey is leaving the team, but for where yet we don't know, but ultimately this must have Red Bull sweating. Newey's little touch of fairy dust isn't going to be there in the coming years, so Red Bull must come up with a solution instead. Then you get into the love-hate sitcom style relationship between Christian Horner and Helmut Marko, which is the most on and off thing I've ever seen. Actually, it's not as on and off as Honda's involvement in F1, but that's another story. There's been scandals, accusations, and then one of them is leaving and then one of them is not. And then for the team, it's sponsors, suppliers, partners, the men and women on the ground back at the factory, that sort of drama going on. It's got to be exhausting and take up so much energy. And then alongside Newey leaving the team, you also have Honda, who are packing up and leaving and jumping ship to Aston Martin, and in my opinion, taking Yuki Tsunoda with them. This then leaves the team as a self-sufficient F1 operation, producing their own engines, but in a partnership with Ford. Yeah, remember Ford, the company that screwed up Red Bull's predecessor so bad that they needed to get out and sell to anybody? So now they want back in, and in this partnership with Red Bull Powertrains, Ford will, and I've got this here, provide expertise in areas including battery cell and electric motor technology, as well as power unit control software and analytics and combustion engine development. Which translates to basically leeching off Red Bull's engine development so they can shove any new tech and findings into some of their Ford cars. So a lot to digest there, but all in all, it just doesn't seem like that well-oiled, mechanic, Terminator-like machine that we saw back in 21, 22 and 23. Something is up behind the scenes, and it looks like the cracks are beginning to show at Red Bull. Actually, while you're there, click the little subscribe button below and help get the channel up to 5,000 subscribers. Okay, so let's unpack the rest of what we saw from Max Verstappen in Hungary. Now, seeing Max giving out on the team radio is something that we're not really strangers to anymore. He'll normally be taking shots at the stewards, at the drivers, and love it or hate it, it is part of the Max Verstappen package. But this was the first significant time, from what I've seen anyway, that himself and his engineer were having a furious exchange and argument over the team radio. Now, before you get any ideas, I actually quite like Max Verstappen. I like his straightforwardness, his un-PR manner in interviews, and the fact that he actually says what he thinks, and it's very refreshing in today's modern F1. But even if you're a fan, what we saw on Sunday, I think, was just childish. It was stroppy, it was desperate, and not really something that you want to hang your hat on as an F1 fan. Unless you're maybe part of the Orange Army, but again, that's a different story. Now, of course, on the one hand, you can say this is a multiple world champion who is used to excellent machinery, and if he isn't getting this, he has every right to make his voice heard. But on the other hand, you could say that Max has become lethargic and spoiled and unable to cope with the nature of racing in the middle of the pack, which is totally different, rather than having a massive lead out front and racing against fresh air. Of course, this isn't fact, it's just my opinion, but it appears that if he genuinely has to put a shift in and race cars which are perhaps faster than his or even on par, he gets upset. Probably because he has had this dream package for so many years. And I'm not just hitting Max on this. Previously, guys like Sebastian Vettel was accused of this, so was Lewis Hamilton. So if you believe that about them, you've got to kind of suggest that the situation might be the same with Verstappen. Either way, if it is true, it's probably a bit of a wake-up call, and in the long run, he's probably going to be better off for it. Now, another factor that isn't helping things and might even be driving a wedge between Max and Red Bull is the persistent rumours about some sort of future with Mercedes. And because these rumours have been allowed to grow and fester rather than just being squashed months ago, I sense that there is still a possibility that we may see this later down the line. Now, on a tactical level, I have no doubt that Toto Wolff is actually enabling these rumours to circulate because it is indirectly disrupting the competition. It is creating a negative environment in the Red Bull team. It's all just another part of the game. So now with Max having this concept in his head of I can kind of go anywhere, it leads him to have a very short fuse with any sort of messing, any kind of tomfoolery going on at Red Bull. But you also have to wonder if this continues, is there a limit of how much Red Bull will put up with, especially if Max isn't winning and throwing his toys out of the pram and even his dad Jos Verstappen stirring the pot. If you have a chicken that lays perfect eggs but then pecks you every time you go and collect it, you'll put up with it. But if those perfect eggs stop and you're still getting pecked, well, so long chicken. So looking ahead for the rest of the season, Max still has a comfy lead in the Drivers' Championship and it will take a monumental screw up to mess things up and lose the title. And it's that monumental screw up that could lead him to start looking elsewhere, maybe towards Mercedes. So let's get on now to the guy in the other seat, Sergio Perez, and he has been seriously up against it recently, with his very presence at not just Red Bull, but F1 up for debate. Even so, with Red Bull's leader in the Constructors' Championship under pressure now, Perez has had to step things up, but there's been no results, there's been no avail. And he just hasn't responded to incentives like new contracts and upgrades. Now, the explanations I've seen so far, I don't totally buy. This thing of, oh, Perez is a terrible driver, he's useless, and oh, he's out of his depth. I think these explanations are far too simplistic, and I think there's a whole lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that are directly and indirectly having an effect. Just when you see Checo at the moment and also in interviews, look at his body language, look at his facial expressions. To me, he gives off the impression of someone who is being forced to do something and to do something against his terms. And I sense there is something happening which is affecting his performance and even his will to be there. So I mentioned earlier that Checo is kind of like a candle being burned at both ends, with one side being Red Bull Racing and the other side being Mexican billionaire and also his backer, Carlos Slim. And both these ends are burning away fast, leaving Perez's will to be in F1 getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So I sense because of everything involved with his place in F1, the sponsorship, the commercial stuff, his backers, he simply can't just get off like other drivers can. With the sponsorship money, commercial tie-ups, the Mexican Grand Prix even, I wonder if there are far bigger wheels turning above him that might mean he will have to stay in F1 until he's told otherwise. Because let's not forget, off the track, Red Bull having Perez in the team is very lucrative. And the millions of sponsorship money that he brings in from companies such as Telcel and Claro means that there will be a big money gap for Red Bull to fill if Perez did leave the team. And I know that analysis might be a bit far-fetched and it might be a bit tinfoil hat, but there was something about Perez's new contract, even with all its clauses and everything, that just didn't add up. The explanation that it was to spur Perez on and act as some sort of incentive, I'm not really buying at all. This is Red Bull, for God's sake. This is the team that goes through drivers like Logan Sargent does with front wings. So my take is that this new contract is a deal that was worked out with Red Bull and Carlos Slim Dummett, and Checo is simply just a passenger in all this. And on top of this, think of all the Red Bull Perez merch they sell in just North America races alone. 4 venues where Perez is one of the biggest, if not the biggest star. So right now, to me, Perez is just giving off vibes that he wants to just step off for a while. He wants to take a break and just have a breather. And maybe pull himself together, reassess, and find a new team. Whether he will be around by the end of the season remains to be seen, but with his contract and apparently all the clauses that are in this, it's a real possibility, I think, that he might be switched out. All in all, though, I really do wonder now if Red Bull's time at the top is starting to come to a close. For now, anyway. Both Verstappen and Checo are clearly unsatisfied, and there are so many internal changes that are about to happen in the team. As well as the regulation changes and the unpredictability that this stirs up, the hairline cracks are there, I think. Come 2026, we will have a Red Bull with no Honda engines and no Adrian Newey. And if the new cycle delivers what it says, you could also perhaps throw in no Verstappen, no Perez, no Helmut Marko, or perhaps even no Christian Horner. And also we'll see how the Ford relationship goes, because to me that just does not seem like a good match. The landscape of the team could be totally different come 2026, and whilst, like I said, these might only be hairline cracks for now, Red Bull has to get to the bottom of what caused the frustrations and everything in the lead up to the Hungarian Grand Prix. Please let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. Are the cracks starting to show at Red Bull? Are they not? Or is this just like a little blip for them? Either way, let me know below. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, share and subscribe. And as always, I'm Paul, and I'll see you later. Cheers.